I mean, every single conflict like this, Russia started the war, they dragged it on for a long, long time, basically making the West accept any kind of solution they were willing to offer. And at the end of the day, Russia walked away with territories, with frozen conflicts, which they could ignite at any point in time, exactly how they are doing.
Well, let's speak now to the Ukrainian MP Lesia Vasylenko. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Let's talk first of all about any prospect of serious negotiations. We know that President Putin has had this telephone conversation with President Macron and Chancellor Scholz urging the serious negotiations. But as we heard there haven't been any since March. That is a real problem, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And as we rightly heard in the piece just before, those negotiations don't really sit well with the Ukrainian people for obvious reasons. I mean, when almost every single Ukrainian has a family member or a friend who has been shot, wounded, tortured, abused by the Russians and by the army, which still has a huge presence in Ukraine, there's not very much will to actually sit down and talk with them, because what are you going to talk about? At the same time, President Zelensky has shown great consistency in saying that he is willing to sit down at the negotiation table, but after Bucha, the nature of those negotiations definitely changed. After Bucha Irpin were deoccupied, and after the whole world saw the extent of the war crimes and crimes against humanity that were being committed by Vladimir Putin's army, not just the whole world, but of course the Ukrainian population has also gone into complete shock. And after that, we understood clearly that the only thing that could be negotiated with them would be the timeline for the Russian army to leave all of Ukrainian territory, a complete deoccupation of all the territories of Ukraine, and then we can sit down and talk about the extent of the reparations that can be paid to Ukraine by Russia.
We, of course, followed the plight of the fighters inside the Azovstal steel plant who have now come out of there. They're in Russian territory. Much discussion about whether there should be a prisoner swap. And I know that there was some insistence, really, by President Macron and Chancellor Scholz to return those fighters to Ukraine. Do you think that there should be some kind of prisoner swap?
Absolutely. I mean, these are the rules of war. Humanitarian law, the Geneva Convention, the Hague Conventions, they were designed to reduce human suffering during wars and to set out a framework within which, that there can be a diminished number of casualties during wars. And the prisoner swaps are exactly put in as a rule for that. And if the two sides were to follow rules, there would have been a prisoner swap long ago. The thing is, Russia is not really playing by the rules. We've known many cases where they have just blatantly breached actually every single article of the Geneva Conventions.
Let's talk a little bit about Russian strategy now. They have obviously decided to concentrate on the Donbass region and pushing forward there. It does appear they have made some gains slowly. This is potentially looking like a very long and drawn-out war. How much do you worry about whether the West will stand by you, supplying the weapons that are needed and keeping the interest in the war and the support that is so needed? How much of a concern is that for you?
You've just voiced every single concern that runs through my mind every day as this war goes on. Russia is good at dragging the world into protracted conflicts, and then by wearing out not just the side they are fighting against, in this case Ukraine, but actually waging wars of attrition against all of the international community. At the end, Russia gets what it wants, essentially more territories, and a very unstable peace, which allows it to defreeze and to activate the conflict in the area of its choosing. We have been seeing this and witnessing this for decades now in Georgia, in Moldova and Transnistria, in Syria. They have done that in their own territories with Chechnya. I mean, every single conflict like this, Russia started the war. They dragged it on for a long, long time, basically making the West accept any kind of solution they were willing to offer. And at the end of the day, Russia walked away with territories, with frozen conflicts, which they could ignite at any point in time, exactly how they are doing. But this approach is the wrong kind of approach. This approach is the kind of approach that ignites more wars in Europe and drags the world into more wars and more killings and more deaths. And Russia should not be let off the hook right now. The only way to stop the aggression is to make sure that there's a prevention mechanism. That prevention mechanism will be there if the country in question, Russia, will be made to pay. And this is what the global community needs to have in mind all the time. And this is what we all must work towards.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning.